Well, here we are, the end of the year. It certainly was a year that happened in the calendar where nothing of note seemingly happened, I think. In the gaming world, 2024 had some really good games. While not filled with the absolute tidal wave of massive hits from last year, I think 2024's catalog is nothing to sniff at. But while 2023 also had massive hits, it also took massive hits on the game development side. That trend didn't stop in 2024, unfortunately. AAA studios laid off hundreds of employees and closed notable studios like Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks despite making insanely good games like Hi-Fi Rush and Dishonored. All of those happened notably as a consequence of the Microsoft and Activision merger, which also led to countless lost jobs in Microsoft itself as well. And all these events transpired while Microsoft execs tried to reassure people the Activision merger is going, well guys, it's totally working, I promise, we just need to lay off 100 more people off and then everything will be fine. We'll get a Call of Duty game that requires 2 separate clients to play and that'll fix everything, I promise. Moving away from being a downer, I played a lot of games this year. I tried to make this year the most horizon expanding year yet in terms of my quote-unquote gamer education. I started a lot of games that I hope to finish in 2025, including Persona 5 and Yakuza 0. I played a lot of old games, I played a lot of new games, played a lot of classics. I played too many hours of Power Wash Simulator. But in long, I guess, here are some of the games that I played this year that had the most impact on me. Starting with number 12, Power Wash Simulator. Wait, that's not the right name. I think I messed up that one in the script. Sorry about that. What I meant to say was Mouthwashing. I've never been into horror-related things by any means, but I've started to dip my toes into the genre this year. And Mouthwashing was the only, and also by default the best, horror game that I have played in 2024. Mouthwashing begins with a mighty crash of a space freighter ship that a crew of 5 is flying in an Amazon-esque space freighter delivery service. It then begins to flash back and forth amongst the memories of the crew while switching perspectives between the captain, Curly, and the first mate, Jimmy. Both perspectives show how the crew is filled with their own stories and struggles, all the while you, the player, is trying to find out who crashed the ship. It was Curly before the crash and Jimmy after the crash. Before the crash, the entire crew learns it is going to be laid off at the end of their trip. After the crash, they find out that all they're transporting is mouthwash, and they have to tend to their captain who is mortally wounded. Mouthwashing masters the surreal. Every moment of the game left me thinking whether what I was experiencing was a real thing or a delusion by either two of the main protagonists' minds. Too many sections in this game are a cross between a Dalí painting and Baldi's Basics, but it also offers a pretty scathing account of what it means to work for a living and devote your life to a company that doesn't give a shit about you. But even more than that, as the game likes to remind you, this game is about quote-unquote taking responsibility. It could be the mechanic Swansea taking responsibility for Daisuke, the young, often stupid intern who works on the ship. It could be Jimmy failing to take responsibility for his own crimes. Most of all, it's about the main character Curly and how he fails to take responsibility for any of his crew's actions on the ship as a captain, and his state as a mortally wounded, immobile pseudo-corpse is a constant reminder of how he's just watched everything happen, and he will be stuck in that state for the rest of his life. If you don't get a good sense of why this game is so good, go read Gene Park of the Washington Post review of this game. It's beautiful, and his conversation with the head developer of Wrong Organ, the developer of the game, is a great view into how Mouthwashing can be a revealing game about pain and the human psyche. Hopefully that will convince you that this is a must-play.
Hey! Listen!
Okay guys, I know it took me long enough, but I think that From Software might be good at this whole making games thing. Shadow of the Erdtree is really that good. It took me the entire latter half of this year to play this DLC, but goddamn wasn't worth it. From Software has done some sort of voodoo magic to make some of the most well-crafted video games that I have ever played. And the fact that this is a DLC and this amount of work is more than what 90% of Western developers put into their full games is insane. Miyazaki and the rest of From have some of the most talented developers working right now, and that talent pays off immensely in Shadow of the Erdtree. Once again, they have some of the most iconic areas ever put into any video game ever, and I feel like this DLC has to have set a record for me for some of the most insane vistas, bosses, and combined overall environments that have just absolutely floored me. the alluring cerulean coast that leads you down an ancient cistern where you fight one of the most annoying bosses in the entire game, the ethereal abyssal woods we are led to another one of the most annoying bosses in the entire game, even the Jagged Peak, which has to be my favorite area in the DLC, has 3 of the most annoying boss types in the entire game because lightning dragons can just one-shot you, especially you, Bale. Fuck you. Fuck you. Igon was goddamn right when he said curse you, Bale. Curse you, Bale. I got my ass beat by this DLC, I'm not gonna lie to you. But once again, every single part of this DLC feels like its own game, and it builds upon the existing Elden Ring lore in such a great way that I can't still believe I'm still fucking fighting Consort Radahn! This year, I played an absolute fuck ton of Metroidvanias. 2024? More like 2024 more hours of backtracking to get back to where I was going. God damn it, why haven't they figured out how to do fast travel right in any of these goddamn games? Hollow Knight, Metroid Prime Remastered, Blasphemous, Dead Cells, you name it. I played a lot of games. But to prioritize games that came out this year, Tales of Kenzera Zao blew me away with its unique spin on the genre. Unlike most Metroidvanias, Zao actually constructs a story where you care about the characters. It's not to say that the gameplay is shallow either, as most of the boss fights in this game are expertly crafted, and the movement puzzles had my adrenaline pumping. But next to all of that is a story about loss, grief, and how we carry ourselves in this life and the next. It's filled with characters that teach Zao, the protagonist, about what it really means to grapple with inner emotions, all while balancing a familial duty to be a shaman. What Abu Bakr Salim has done with Surgeon Studios, all while balancing a very successful voice and screen acting career, should be studied. So if there's any other selling point to this game, it's made by the guy who played both Elwyn of Hull from House of the Dragon, and also voiced a main Assassin's Creed protagonist. I don't know what else I need to tell you, you gotta go play this game. I'll keep this one short, but it's pretty insane to me how a franchise like The Legend of Zelda keeps innovating new ways to tell the same story, yet somehow it's different every time. Echoes of Wisdom enters into the long-lauded franchise full of inventiveness. In the same art style as Link's Awakening, the remake for the Switch, Echoes of Wisdom dares to answer the question, what if the person you were playing on screen actually was Zelda? It answers this question beautifully through a story of saving Hyrule and Link from certain death. And it's all backed by a very interesting new mechanic that opens up pretty limitless possibilities for experimentation. I think probably my favorite part about this game, and also probably the most understated part of the game, is just how much whimsy it holds. You can summon almost every enemy that's in every single Zelda game. That's pretty insane. Also, all the missions are filled with a very lively characters backed by an even more pleasant soundtrack. It's just a great game, and an even more excellent swan song for Zelda on the Switch. Answer me this question. Would you rather have 1 game or 50 games? Huh? What are you still doing standing there? Answer the question. Well, it's already too late because developer Mossmouth has already answered the question for you and has put 50 games into 1 game. And it's also $25. I didn't even know that was legal. UFO 50 is a modern gaming marvel, not just because it's a collection of 50 games that you can buy for $25 on Steam right now, but because there is absolutely zero filler in any of them. Every single game is crafted to absolute perfection. While not every game would be someone's cup of tea, that's not bad news because there's also 49 more games for you to try. Some personal favorites of mine include Magic Garden, Ninpeck, even though I am very bad at it, and Porgy. The games also aren't just limited to shmups or other classic arcade games. One of my favorite games in the collection is Night Mansion, which is a horror adventure game where you try to escape a mansion while evading a masked killer. UFO 50 is one of those games that I'll pick up thinking I'll only play for 10 minutes or so, and soon enough an hour passes by like it's nothing. It's gaming in its purest form as a callback to the 80s and 90s and the quote-unquote golden era, but it's an absolute delight here and now as well. I don't know what else I need to say to sell you on this game. If you told me 3 years ago that one of my favorite gaming YouTubers of all time would found a game publishing company and that their first game that they published would be a massive hit gunning for Best Debut Indie at the Game Awards, I would never believe you. The crazy thing about Animal Well is that out of all the Metroidvanias I played this year, it was by far the most simple, and that's not a derogatory thing at all. It has one of the most enamoring settings out of any game, period. Simplicity is in its DNA. Everything is underground, backlit by dark hues of blue and violet. There's no shortage of vibrant settings. There's lush green spaces that are home to lizards and other jungle creatures, deep wells within wells filled with fish. Towards the end of the playthrough, something much more sinister. It's a masterclass in atmosphere, making the main character do anything but fit in the larger environment. Animal Well is a wonder to explore because of how simple it is. Its puzzles know how to make your brain work hard, and the solution is always within reach. If Big Mode has more games like these up its sleeve, it'll be on a hot start for the newfound publishing company. Also, Billy Basso is a savant. Every time I make a top whatever list of games that I played in a given year, I always need to include a game that came out years or decades ago, but I'm playing for the first time. That game for me this year is Half-Life 2. I don't understand how this game is so good. It takes everything that Half-Life 1 established with the story of Black Mesa and sends it into the fucking stratosphere. It has likable characters, better weapons, an even stronger tone of menacing, overhanging authority with the Combine. But I think the best part about Half-Life 2 compared to the first game is its sense of scale. Having long chase scenes in the buggy or the airboat was something that I wasn't expecting, coming from a game where the main story happens entirely within one building. There's so much to be told from this new dimension of gameplay. The vastness of the Combine's reach, how far Gordon has to travel to escape it, and how big the Combine is at the end of the game. For a game that came out in 2004, it's insane to me how well it holds up. Even the episodic DLC entries were great and expanded the world of Half-Life beyond Black Mesa and City 17. Also, G-Man has to be one of the most menacing villains ever unveiled in a video game, argue with the wall. I can't wait to explore more of this series with Half-Life Alyx if I can ever afford a fucking VR setup. If any of you have watched this channel before, and also I know a lot of you have that are watching this video because over 99% of you aren't subscribed, click the subscribe button right now, please, if you haven't already. You would know that I made a video about I Am Your Beast, a new game from the trailblazing developer Strange Scaffold. It's one of the best games to come out this year, period. Every single time I booted up this game, I felt like I was going to do something that would make me look like I was the most insane FPS player in the entire world. But after seeing so many others post similar clips and also post negative times for levels and kill enemies in the most creative ways possible, I just realized that that's how the game is made. Every single level is made to make you feel like an assassin, and it fucking rips. But while there's definitely this cool exterior about I Am Your Beast, a more sinister story lies beneath. It's a story filled with trauma, broken relationships, and the horrors of the military-industrial complex. Yet it's still propelled by this unyielding force pushing you forward as you try to bend this game to your will. You don't want to miss this one. In a first from me, I have only put 2 real quote-unquote AAA games on this year's list. Not counting Half-Life 2, because Valve wasn't AAA when it came out, and also it's an old game, so it doesn't count. I promise, this is part of the rules. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is one of those games, and it 100% deserves every single ounce of praise it gets. The creators of this game asked the insane question, what if we just took every single good portion about any Metroidvania that exists right now and combined them into one game? That result is The Lost Crown. Everything about this game is so tight, contained, and sleek. The movement, sleek. The characters, sleek. The level design, sleek. Every single portion of this game is just built around making sure the combat and movement feel as smooth as possible, and not letting anything else, whether it be story or level design, get in the way of that enjoyment for the player. It also has a great sense of progression, and every region in the map feels unique and brings so much to the table. The forest area, the upper city, the lower city, even this frozen in time sea that you fight a boss on is the most insane thing I've ever seen in a setting for a Metroidvania. It also had a story that I actually cared about Finding the mysteries of Mount Koth and figuring out where the corruption of the Immortals came from and who controls the royal throne in Persia was so compelling. It also might be the first time I've ever cared about a story in a Ubisoft game for probably 5 years at least. And the best part is that it keeps this same sense of epicness throughout its runtime, ending in one of the most crazy boss fights I've ever seen from a Metroidvania. The Lost Crown even innovates on the Metroidvania genre itself, because what is the number one problem that people have with Metroidvanias? Backtracking. The memory function in this game basically eliminates backtracking in the sense that it can allow you to take pictures of the in-game screen of where you are when you're blocked off at an impasse so you can't make any progress. It's just so good. But of course, in typical AAA fashion, Ubisoft broke up the development team that made it because it didn't hit financial goals. This game is easily the best game that a Ubisoft studio has made in 10 years, and it's really a shame they're snuffing out this potential before it can even get off the ground in terms of a larger IP. Instead of disregarding their studios' great talent, perhaps Ubisoft can take a lesson from this next and only other AAA game that's on this list. Alright, we're getting into the top 3. The big boys, as they're known colloquially. I don't know. But of course, the only other AAA game to make the top 3 this year is I think the main reason why Astro Bot resonated with so many people is that it took some of the best aspects from successful Nintendo games and put an incredibly unique spin on it. And I'm not trying to sell Astro Bot short here, it's an insanely good game that stands on its own. But when you say I'm gonna combine the gameplay from Super Mario Galaxy with a roster of familiar characters like Smash Bros., what's not to like? They got Nathan Drake, they got God of War, they got Infamous, Final Fantasy, Ape Escape, Horizon, Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, Crash Bandicoot, and so many more that I can't even list right now. They even managed to get the best character in all of gaming. I'm not sure how he fitted into his busy schedule, but they even got Knack. That's insane. They got Knack for this game? Goddamn. In all seriousness, Astro Bot feels like the breath of fresh air that Sony needed to get something new out there. It's the only other AAA game that gets nominated to this year's list in an age where all of the major AAA studios are relying on their tried and true IPs to get them sales. Astro Bot soars and exceeds expectations. The fact that they managed to combine so many things into one game and make it fit seamlessly is insane. While I will say it would be nice that Sony actually showed love to these classic franchises instead of just mentioning them in passing, it's a nice tribute. Outside of all of that though, besides all the IPs and all of the PlayStation characters, Astro Bot itself can stand on its own. It is pure joy. All of the movement is amazing, the enemy design is great, the power-ups and level design is so creative and cohesive. Every single time I picked this game up, I wanted to keep playing until I couldn't play anymore. It's one of the only games I've beaten 100% of the way this year, and for good reason. Team Asobi should be proud, and I'm really glad that they won Game of the Year this year. Even though it wasn't my top pick, they 100% deserve it. They deserve every single amount of praise that they get for this game. It's amazing. You all knew this one was coming, didn't you? They did it. They made the perfect game. Balatro is somehow both the most addictive game related to gambling in the form of poker hands, but also not gambling. It might as well be gambling, though. In total, between all of my different systems, between my PC, my phone, and every other device that has Balatro on it, I have played probably close to 70 hours. I know that's definitely on the lower end for a lot of people, but I don't spend this much time playing a single game. That's how good it is. Every single run brings something new, and every single time I open this game, I'm getting something unique out of it. And the best part of this game is that despite how simple it is, you can feel that so much effort went into every single aspect of Balatro's design. The little animations that happen whenever you scroll over the cards, the lo-fi music that keeps egging you on and on, that's the song's background by the way. The sound effects for when you score to beat a massive blind that's stuck in your way. In a year filled with disappointing projects based on IP for game companies that are fading into obscurity, Balatro stands strong. A game made by a solo developer has made its way all the way to the top of the food chain, and now it's gotten to the point where it is advertised directly next to Steam's signature new product, the Steam Deck. Like, Balatro is the first thing you see when you click on the Steam Deck ad page. Unless we get something new in the next few years, Balatro will probably go down in history as one of the most successful indies ever, up there with the big boys like Undertale. Unless you've been living under a rock, there's no way you haven't heard of Balatro and you care about games. But in case you have been living under a rock, it's a poker roguelike. What else do I need to tell you? This is one of the best games ever made. Oh my god. So, you might be wondering, Jack, why isn't Balatro your number one game of the year? If you said it's the perfect game, why isn't it the best game this year? Well, any other year Balatro would have been the number one game just based on how good the game is from top to bottom. Every single part of it is flawlessly executed. But also, Balatro didn't make me cry. It's impossible to describe 1,000 Times Resist other than a game of multitudes. It's a game about birth, death, rebirth, sisterhood, motherhood, democracy, armed resistance, what makes a society function, and so many more things that I couldn't even begin to summarize in a video this short. It's a game where history has no meaning, where events rip through a cycle of trauma, uprising, and death. 1,000 Times Resist is a game where all humans are one, but also are no one. The story follows the Earth after an alien plague devastates it, leaving only one girl who is immune, Iris, alive. One moment, her parents are going through the Hong Kong protests that happened just a few years ago. The next moment, it's 2035, and Iris is leading an independent society full of clones of herself, a conclave of insulated society trying to protect itself from the virus that the aliens have brought to Earth. These aliens don't see time in a straight line like we do, but in a mixed string of memories. These aliens have chosen Iris to continue on her planet's legacy, and she continues it with a lineage of clones beholden to her will, until they aren't. Much like the aliens, we experience the narrative of 1,000 Times Resist in a fragmented series until we eventually get the full picture. But these fragments are arguably more indicative of how powerful this game is on their own. I haven't played a game in recent memory that expresses such themes of cultural identity, shared trauma, and how we respond to it in such a beautiful way. I think I might need a few more playthroughs, but I think this game is a modern masterpiece. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching this video and all of my other videos that have come out this year. All 2 of them. Despite the slow production from my end, I want to thank every single one of the 176 of you who have tuned into the channel this year, and even more who haven't subscribed, and there will be more coming soon. So with that, one final thank you, and have a happy holidays and an even better new year. I'll see you soon.